Is basically what's happened.
And I know Spurs fans will think it's bad for them that he's picked up the phone and like, don't I don't want to go to Spurs, I want to go to your arch rivals Arsenal and all that sort of stuff. But actually I think you should look at it philosophically, which I think some Spurs fans have done, is that if he didn't really want to play for you. Hi everyone, welcome back to another Watch More Football. This episode we're going to be looking more at what's come ahead. If you caught our video earlier on in the week, we've looked at the previous game weeks that have happened, looked at some of the results, all the predictions we've made, how badly we've did. In this episode we're kind of looking a little bit more ahead towards the end of the transfer window, and just maybe a bit of a focus on our teams. I'm a Newcastle United fan, and Ryan here is a Man United fan. It's just the two of us this week. As always, producer Kyle is here as well. And you're watching us on the Genreverse Sports YouTube channel. But while you're on there, why not check out our main Genreverse YouTube channel as well, especially if you like anime content, because it's really, really popular channel. You get loads of good access to reviews, reactions, things like that are on there. So if you love anime, it's a great place to check out. If in a broader range of entertainment, if you prefer written content, also check out our main website, which is lrmonline.com. I'm one of the writers there, and occasionally Kel writes there as well, and lots of other people too. And we tend to write about the things that we like. So for me, you'll get lots of big franchise talk, Marvel, Star Wars, DC news, rumours, and reviews as well. There's lots of that, and there's comic books, loads of stuff on there, so check it out. But for this show, we're totally focused on the Premier League and football. We're 2 game weeks in now, so where are we? We've got the transfer window shuts at 7 p.m. on September the 1st, so as we speak here on Thursday at the moment, there's only really a few days left of the window to go. So Ryan, what's going to happen, if anything? Is it all going to heat up towards the end? Or?
I mean, what is absolutely going to happen is that the Alexander Isak sagarometer is going to be dialed right the way up to 11 by the people who are interested in that happening. But actually, I think very little will happen in reality on that front anyway. I don't foresee there being too much drama on that.
I still think there's a chance of it all going the way Liverpool fans want. I don't know. It all depends if Newcastle can tempt another two strikers to come into the club within the next few days now. And realistically, I just don't see that happening with the targets that Newcastle have been after. What are just not wanted to be, the clubs don't want to sell them, and Newcastle don't want to pay over the odds, like they're desperate at the moment, which I think are kind of at the stage where you need to do that to get these players. At this
point, I think Newcastle, however they do it, they're going to tie up a lot of money in players who probably aren't the ideal. They're going to, 60 million for Strand Larsen, and obviously Wolves are saying he's not for sale. If you chuck another 10 million on top of that, I wonder how much that changes. But Strand Larsen's not a 70 million pound player, for example.
Well,
there's talk of like
rejected. So if we've chucked another 10 on, it would be 60. But
but 70, even that is no.
That'd be crazy.
There was talk that obviously Juventus all summer have been trying to get rid of Dusan Vlahovic, and they're really sort of cutting down on the asking price. He needs to really cut down on his wages for that to be worth it.
I think I heard.
Yeah.
But he's the wages thing, isn't it? Because he's still got a mega contract for a year more, so he doesn't really want to move.
Exactly. So it's either, I suppose you could do a bit like what we're trying to do on Sancho, is just you loan him for a year, but you cover all of his wages, and fine, that's still probably 20 million euros plunged into him.
Here's the thing, though, when it comes to Vlahovic, for me, Ryan, I think he's shit. And I think Juventus are trying to get rid of him because he's not scoring goals for them. I don't see why he's going to come to the Premier League and suddenly become the player that he looked like when he was 5 years ago or whatever, when you were talking about when you guys were interested in him and stuff, and Arsenal were interested in him, and all of this sort of talk. I just don't think we are there with him right now. And I think if I was to compare the two, I would rather pay 60 million for Jacob Strand-Larsen because he scored goals in the Premier League than I would 30 million euros on Vlahovic. And I know that's crazy because like we're talking left, but the wages would be a factor. I think Jacob Strand-Larsen would cost less money in wages per week. So
undoubtedly,
all that in together. Not for me, but I don't get a say in it. Who Newcastle decide to say, I don't get a say in it. So I certainly wouldn't be excited by him.
So say Liverpool arrive with their £150 million and Isak is gone. Who do you want, or who do you think you can get, is the big question. And it's the question that I suppose the Newcastle directors will be asking as well. But yeah, I don't know. Where do you think?
I think if I could come up with an answer for that, they'd be watching this video and hiring me as a DOF because I think that's the problem. There just isn't anyone left. I mean, the most obvious choices you'd look at is Wissa and Strand-Larsen. I don't think either of them qualify as the Isak replacement, though they both feel like the Callum Wilson replacement. Wissa, he would be the one I would want as the Wilson replacement. He's 29, so he's at the peak of his career. He's probably going to have 3 or 4 good years where he wants to come to us. Brentford just won't sell. So I don't know. But there was a rumour I heard today that they were looking at signing some sort of player. So who knows if that could change towards the end of the window.
Yeah.
I don't know, but now he's back in training. But for me, the worry is obviously if we don't sell Isak, will he actually come back and start playing with us, or will he just do the whole strike thing and say he's refusing to play for us and wait for his move in January?
Yeah.
That's the worst part, because then we'll get no one.
Yeah, I think because it's a World Cup year, it's not a guarantee that Sweden make it, but he'll want to be in those squads. I think Sweden, because it's, they're one of those small players, they're one of those small teams where they've got a handful of really good players, they try and cram them all in. I think they try and play a 2 with him and Gyökeres. So it's not like he's got to try and get in the squad ahead of Gyökeres.
Yeah.
So it's you haven't got that leverage there. But then if he does sit out until January, are they going to keep picking him? Is he going to... Yeah, I don't know.
My preference would be that he goes and we get the replacements in, because I don't really want to keep him at this point because of the way he's acted. It's really just as simple as that. I'm quite happy if we go to Liverpool and he fails. That's my feelings on it. But at the same time, I just don't see us getting anyone else in at this point. So we'll see. By the time this goes out on Thursday, because we're not recording it bang on Thursday, I'd be interested to see if we've made a signing, but I'd be highly surprised if that is the case.
You could always do a short.
That is obviously
if something happens and be like, oh hey, this is my thoughts on it.
If something seismic happens, we could.
But I think it's more likely we'll discuss it in next week once it's all finished and done with, and we'll get to the end of the window and we know what's happening. Because by then, Isak will either have said still not going to play, because the press have been all over this, or he'll make an apology and sack his agent or something like that. Could still see him signing a new contract or something.
I mean,
like that.
it is very easy for him to say.
At the start of the summer.
It is very easy for him to say now, I'm never playing for Newcastle again, but when the window's closed and he's got to live with that until January, how quickly does his story change? Because I think this all escalated to Newcastle. Well, Isak's at war with Newcastle. That escalated quite quickly. It went from rumblings that Liverpool wanted to make a bid to Isak's dipping out of the pre-season tour and going on strike and releasing statements and whatever. That all happened quite quickly. So, it's interesting.
Depending on what sources you read, because there's the whole Melissa Reddy angle that I've been against, and I don't think makes any sense. Her story angle, and I think there was discussions, but I don't think at any point did Newcastle promise Isak, yes, we will let you go this year. I think they've tried their hardest since the whole Ekitike period. I think from then they were trying to get a proper replacement, but
you look at it as well. In terms of Newcastle's position is the money's not been put on the table yet. You look at Gyökeres for about £60 million, Ekitike for what, £70-80 million, Sesko for £70-80 million, João Pedro for £60 million. Isak's a better player than all four of them in the Premier League context.
More proven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely he needs to be going for top dollar, especially because he's still got 3 years left on his contract.
Yep, and he's at that premium age where you think the next 4 years will be the best in his career, or the next 4 or 5 years. And Liverpool's not really a selling club, so they're not looking to, make a profit on him. They're looking to keep him for his career.
They're looking to win more Premier Leagues, win the Champions League, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've no problem with like a player want to improve themselves. Isak didn't grow up a Newcastle fan and go to bed with his Newcastle jammies on. That's just, it's not true. It'd be different. It's different, I think, with a local player a little bit. So I don't have a problem. It's just the way he's done it. I think he could have been a lot less public about the whole thing, and I think he might have got his move better, and I think Liverpool made a mistake signing Ekitike as well if they really wanted Isak. I think that could prove a big stumbling block for them, because I think if they had just waited and went, let's just wait a minute, let's not rush into this, we'll let Ekitike know we're interested, and then Isak had done his blow-up thing, it could have all changed in a bit at that point if Liverpool had said, look, we'll negotiate a fee with you and we'll let you get a free path to Ekitike. Then I think Isak would be there right now. Ekitike would have been playing for us last night, and Isak would have been playing for them basically, and it would have been done. So anyway, what about other, that's us. I think actually people have talked about Newcastle with a terrible transfer window, but really the Isak thing's dominated. I think we've had a decent transfer window, but a club I would say that we're struggling more than us in the transfer window, I would have said Everton a week ago. But they've actually made a couple of signings now which have just changed things up for them. I would say the club really struggling in the transfer window right now, despite the team doing well as Spurs. Because they've had more direct rejections, I think, than even Newcastle have this year, and certainly more.
Yeah, a lot's been made of Newcastle losing out on targets to other clubs. I think Spurs is slightly different, because obviously they thought they'd triggered the release clause for Morgan Gibbs-White, and Forest disputed that, and Gibbs-White ended up with a new contract, and we won't say any more than that because we don't have any show lawyers.
Yeah, it's about we don't want to get banned for not on Forest ground.
No, definitely not. Eze is the more damning one, because that all looked like it was going to go, and he was going to have his grand goodbye in the Conference League game last week, and then last minute Eze physically called up Mikel Arteta and said, can you please make sure that this bid goes through? And it looked like, from what I've heard since, is that quite early on in the window Arsenal had the transfer all basically ironed out. They just didn't hit go on it because they were waiting to see what else happened. And Eze basically said, like, if you don't do this now, I'm going to have to go to Spurs. And then Kai Havertz got injured, so they were like, oh, fuck it, let's do it. It's basically what's happened.
And I know Spurs fans will think it's bad for them that he's picked up the phone and like, I don't want to go to Spurs, I want to go to your arch rivals Arsenal and all that sort of stuff. But actually I think you should look at it philosophically, which I think some Spurs fans have done, is that if he didn't really want to play for you, actually it's better that you didn't get him, because maybe he was just going there for I'll go to Spurs and I'll make up the numbers, I'm never going to go to it. But he possibly wasn't going there with the right ambition that you want, and it makes me think about the Isak situation as well. I don't necessarily want a player playing for us that doesn't want to be there, so I don't think they should worry about it too much.
But I don't think Spurs have necessarily had a disastrous window. I think they need to replace James Maddison, but then they sort of got that with Kudus. I know he's playing on the right, but he can play centrally. They've got Kulusevski, when he's fit again, can play centrally. I think they've got options there.
Quite a while, I think, I think him and Maddison have got quite a while in the sidelines to go, and I think that's the main issue. I think they'd have been okay if it wasn't for the injuries, but the fact that they have been trying to sign players and just getting nowhere most of the summer, other than Polinia. Have they signed even anybody else yet? I don't think they have.
No, well, so they've signed Polinia, they've signed Kudus, and then they made a couple of loan deals permanent. Yeah, they've made a couple of loan deals permanent.
Be good.
Yeah, he's had a good start to his time there.
They need a 10, and there's been talk about. I think they'll get some decent. I actually think there was talk of them going for El Kounoussi and try to pit some of the smaller teams to him.
Yeah,
I think he would be a good signing for Spurs because it's a step up, and I think at Spurs you want players that are. I'm taking the step up now. I'm at a bigger team, and I want to show myself at this stage. That's the players that you should be targeting.
A bit like with Gibbs White is that the assumption was he was going to go to City for £100 million, and if you've got that in your head, and all of a sudden Spurs
there was a lot of 60 last year, wasn't there?
Yeah. So I can see that a bit, but yeah, I don't think, because I don't look at Spurs squad and say they're missing this. Yeah, fine, they probably need a number 10, but they've got solutions. We'll see if Van der Ven and Romero can stay fit for a season, but I think Kevin Danso is a really good understudy if one of them goes missing. Dragusin, probably not so much, but I quite like Kevin Danso. I think he's done well for Spurs so far. And I think fullbacks, they've got Spencer Udogie on the left. They haven't really got any cover for Porra on the right, so maybe that's somewhere that they could look at as well. But yeah,
but really, you're right. Probably if they got a decent 10 in and maybe something else attacking wise, like a winger, something like that, they're probably in a decent position. But and I guess we talked about this in the previous episode this week. Villa are looking a bit shaky, and they haven't really improved the squad in the transfer market.
No,
but I could see them trying to get a few deals last minute, and
I think there'll be
see a lot of smaller teams picking up players as well, which
I think as well there'll be, especially with Villa, I think similar to how they did in January, there'll be quite a few creative and opportunistic loan deals. So I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get one of our bomb squad, for example.
Wait to see who's still there in the last couple of days, and then go right, like nobody else is buying them. And I think one of them could be, for example, Garnacho, because I think for what Dave's saying today, like it looks like Jackson's now going to go on loan to Bayern Munich, which Chelsea really wanted a sale so that they could go and buy Garnacho and Xavi Simon. And Dave was saying he thinks now that they'll only be able to buy one of them. And you would think that Xavi Simon would be the one. Yeah,
they sort of need that profile a bit more than they need Garnacho. Garnacho, I love Garnacho. I'm really sad at how his time at United is ending, because I do think it has been blown up just because we stand to make a bit of money for him, and in doing that we've tanked any of that money that we were going to stand to make from him. But I see with Chelsea, he would be moved on in 18 months' time if he went there. Whereas at Villa, he could really, especially with Emery, who likes to improve a player, he could really kick on and make something of himself at Villa. So we'll see what happens there.
We will. There could be a few of you guys left, and you're not really getting the sales that you want. But I think we know why. It's the wage demands of what the people are looking for, or the dominoes falling, and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens. Anything else you're expecting? I mean, do you think you'll pick up a midfielder? There was a lot of talk back in the confident Ryan days. You were going to get Believer, like for maybe 100 million. It looks like, probably smart, calmer heads prevailed and thought, no, we're not spending another 100 million this summer. Believer. But there's been talk of you picking up someone, and there's been various ones.
Yeah, so we're in quite advanced talks, and by the time this episode comes out, it might have happened, but we're in quite advanced talks with Royal Antwerp for their keeper, Sané Lamens, who's a fairly young keeper. Apparently, he's the next, he's the heir to Thibaut Courtois when Courtois eventually retires. I've never seen him play. I expect he'll be there to basically, I would say understudy Onana, but Altay seems to be first choice for some reason. But I imagine the hope is by the end of the season he's sort of making that position his own. a bit, but we'll see what happens there. It's a really cheap deal. It's about 20 million euros, so it's a nice level of deal, I think. But given our current goalkeeper situation, he has got a bit of pressure to sort of come in and try and. Yeah,
he's not going to be expected to come in and take the number one role.
But I think the opportunity is there for him to do it if he fancies it. Yeah. That's the thing, because there's so many question marks over Onana and
it's like for young keepers, keepers do mature slightly. Usually, except the really top ones at a different rate.
With the midfielder,
do you think he'll just stick?
So we've had, obviously we had the Believer stuff, which has been dead. We've had like a brief link to Adam Wharton, who is the other young, highly rated midfielder. He's going to cost Believer money. He's not the same player as Believer, much as I'd love him. There was brief links for Kasper Hjulmand, who plays for Sporting. He played under under Ruben, but that's gone quiet. It's very difficult because it's not about we're lacking numbers in midfield. It's about the quality and what we want out of the people in the midfield. And Casemiro's starting at the minute. Ideally, he'd move on and he'd free up a load of money and we'd replace him. Ugarte's getting some minutes, but he looked good at the start of pre-season. Then he had an absolute nightmare from Everton, and he's not looked the same since. The real issue is, and if we were recording podcasts at the start of the window, I would have been going into this in more depth. Really, we should have encouraged Bruno to go to Saudi Arabia. Much as he's our best player by a country mile, he's not the problem. He's not the problem in the system, I don't think, because I think he can do the job that he's being asked to do. The problem is, because he is that much better than everybody else, he can't be dropped, he can't be rested, he can't be subbed off. And if he's not having a good game, the rest of the team struggles to pick up that slack from him. So against Fulham, his head went because the referee bumped into him taking his penalty. He wasn't the same player since. Any other player would have been hauled off, but because it's Bruno, he's got to stay on the pitch. We've got to live with that for the rest of the game, which means that Kobbie Mainoo doesn't get a look in because he should be trying to take over that position from him. So I think if we had sold him,
if he wants out at the moment.
It's not necessarily that he wants out. I think he'd listen to offers if they came in because he's not getting a look in at United for whatever reason at the moment.
I know, but I guess what I'm saying is I kind of agree. I don't think that works with Bruno and Casemiro. I just think of them when they played against us last year, and it was like men against boys. Do you know what I mean? In terms of just pure athleticism and power. I just don't think they work as a two-man player. I think Casemiro could work with somebody with an engine next to him, or Bruno could work with somebody with an engine next to him, but not the same. I think Bruno's being a goal scorer or a goal creator as a 10.
I think when we have the ball, it works really well, and the back three can cover defensively pretty well. But when what happened against Fulham is the early pressure didn't tell, heads dropped, the intensity dropped, that let Fulham knock the ball about. That's when we struggle. But if we're trying to pen a team in, having mental
problems,
I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's because the drop off happened well before the penalty. The first 15 minutes, Fulham couldn't live with us, and then for whatever reason, that intensity, that pressing, that quick passing just stopped, and Fulham got back into the game, and it was all Fulham for a good 15-20 minutes until the penalty. But because of whatever happened with the penalty, we couldn't drag ourselves back into it. Yes, we took the lead, but it didn't even raise a smile from me, that goal, because we just weren't playing. So that's what needs to be fixed. But equally, it is a bit of, we rely on Bruno to dig us out, but if he's not going to be able to dig us out, we need to be able to say, no, you've had a go, let's give somebody else a try. Because
I get that. I just wonder if you earlier, like when we did the previous episode, I remember you saying nothing's changed. We've changed the coach, we changed the players, we've still got this, but what causes that then? Because there has to be a cause of it. Like, there's not some infection in the grounds at Old Trafford that happens. So if you change all the players and you change the coach, and you're bringing in players like Cunha and Buemo, Sesko, who've never been involved in any of that, you get rid of the ones that maybe were causing a few problems, and yet you feel you're still in that same thing. So what's the cause of that? I mean, maybe you just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. What I would say is that I mentioned in the group chat on Sunday is that, and this is something that I've been thinking for 20 years, even going back to Fergie's time, is that a lot of other clubs, Chelsea, City, even Liverpool, Spurs to an extent, they sort of push the envelope. Even Villa, they push the envelope in terms of how the game's developing, what trends are going, and capitalising on them, and even sort of dictating them. And we're always playing catch up to that. And every time we get to that level, the game has moved on another 2 levels again, and we're always behind on that. So like the set pieces, you think we've got a load of big lads in the squad now. We've got loads of people who can put a good ball in, and yet we're not a threat from corners at all. Why are we not looking at what Arsenal are doing and saying that's a really easy way for us to add goals to our game? That it's that sort of thing that just doesn't seem to be there. But it's also just they've always been, for the last 10 years at least, they've been a really sort of confidence reliant squad where if the feeling's good, they play well. If they need to dig out a result, they can to an extent. But it's about raising yourself for these boring early season games that they just don't seem to be able to do. And then because of that, the games at the end of the season don't matter. And you've got to earn those big games at the end of the season by getting through the shit ones at the start. And they just don't seem willing to do that for whatever reason.
I don't know. I think that would imply that you're a really good team under the surface and just not getting the most out. But actually, I think you bought well this year. You bought a new attack, which is a good attack, I think. But actually, if I look at some of the signings you made in previous season, I don't think they have been that good, and that you had that good a team, and that you should have been better than what you did do, yes. And I think that there's probably a lot of pressure that becomes involved in that, and the pressure to be so good when the players aren't good enough, they can't handle it. So they're 10 times worse than they would be at a club where there's less pressure on them. I don't know. But I still go back to this, that if, I'm not saying I would want it to happen, but if instead of getting Ruben Amorim in last year, you had went and spent £20 million to poach Eddie Howe, right? Eddie Howe's Man United team last year wouldn't have finished 15th.
No.
You'd have probably won the Europa League, because he would have had you playing better. And if you gave him the 300 million to spend that you've spent this year, I think, and he would have kept more of the bomb squad as well and got them and got them playing. That's my thing with Ruben Amorim. It's like a scorched earth thing. Like Eric Ten Hag done the same thing. Came in, scorched earth. Don't want any of these ones. Get rid of them. I'm going to keep this squad, bring in my own people. And Ruben Amorim's almost done the same thing, and I'm not sure.
But I think that's been that's been necessary.
Thing to do. I could be wrong.
I think that's been necessary, and it's going to be pain until it actually works. Is that, like I keep saying, there is something fundamentally wrong where players look really good, they come to United, and it's like basically they've arrived just by signing for United. They haven't got to strive for that anymore, even if United are mid-table. And fine, Eddie Howe, he would have kept us. He would have kept us in the top 8. He would have won us the Europa League. When Amorim came in, we were only 4 points off the top 4, and we ended up 15th. Eddie would have improved on that, but then next season, when we need to kick on to stay in the Champions League, to start challenging for a title,
fine.
I don't know that Eddie's got that in him, but equally, I don't know that the atmosphere in the club is there yet. What I think Amorim has done, and what I think Ineos have done, is they've made a lot of unpopular calls and bad PR calls and things that they're going to be mocked for while the results aren't there. But what they have done is looked the problems in the eye, called them out, and tried to do something about them. Whereas under the Glazers, under Woodward, especially post Fergie, it was all about papering over the cracks and just saying, oh, we just need these one or two people and then we'll be back to where we were again. And it's taken us a long time to go, actually, no, we're just a shit mid-table club. Let's build up. So, yeah.
I'm with you, although I know there's a lot of Man United fans out there who'll be hating you saying that and saying disagreeing with you completely, and that's part of the problems that you've discussed in the past yourself as well. Anyway, shall we look at our kind of predictions for the next set of games, the games that are coming up? And have a little look at, what's coming ahead. There's nothing too much more I would add to what I've already said about Newcastle and Isaac and all that at the start. There's nothing else.
Everything we say will be out of date by the time this episode comes out anyway, probably. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed you get some interesting insight. But I mean, in terms of fixtures this week, there is only really one that stands out, and we were talking about whether Arsenal could live with the other title challengers. Well, they're going to Anfield on Sunday, which I think they have the edge going into it. Personally, I think they look in better shape than Liverpool do. Although obviously it looks like Saka's going to miss out on that. Odegaard is a bit hit and miss, so it's going to be about how good those depth signings like Madueke and Eze actually are.
Yeah,
but
Madueke, I thought Madueke played better on the right than he did on the left. But I mean, that's his position, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
So
that is the big one. That's an early marker for the title.
Because I think often when you get to these games, though, so rarely they result in a win for either side.
Yeah.
They so often,
especially this early in the season,
the team wants to commit too much.
But that has been Arsenal's problem in the past. Is that I think last season they went up against City quite early, and really they needed to go for the jugular there, and fine they had a red card that was a bit harsh and all that sort of thing, but they didn't press that home, and that ultimately is I think, and it was the season before they didn't press it home against City as well. So I think Arsenal
about this before, but
Arsenal have got a big opportunity because Liverpool look quite vulnerable defensively. I think Arsenal have got a big opportunity to really lay down a marker and say, no, we've sorted our issues out now.
And I guess equally, if Liverpool turn them over, it's kind of might give them the confidence to say, here we are.
So you just hope one of the sides is going to be brave and see the opportunity for what it is, if that makes sense. Yeah. I've gone for 1-0 Arsenal on that. But I went one each, I think, because I think, I just fancy a draw. Yeah. So the other teams, the other interesting games are more about sort of laying down a marker for how good or bad are these teams. So you've got Villa versus Palace. Now Villa, we've been saying have been a bit underwhelming this season. Palace, I think, have looked better than we expected them to, but they have got a Conference League qualifier before that. That Villa don't. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting.
Lose some players in the next few
years.
They
might lose Mark Gay.
Just wait and see.
So that'll be an interesting one just to see where those two are. You've got Sunderland versus Brentford. Now, Sunderland were really good against West Ham, not quite as good against Burnley, and they got beat. Brentford were awful against Forest, decent against Villa, and I still think Brentford might be in trouble this season, and this will go a long way of telling us whether that's true or not.
I think the bookies would say Sunderland because they're playing at home, and Brentford don't do too well away from home. I kind of feel maybe Brentford turned the corner a little bit last week and might be just a little bit better and good enough to at least get a draw away from home at Sunderland. But
and then United are at home to Burnley. They simply have to win, and they have to do it with minimal fuss, I think, for the mood. Otherwise, the mood is just going to plummet. We've got Grimsby in the cup on Wednesday. I want to see Benjamin Sesko starting there because he's not been able to do anything with his cameos. But if he was on the pitch for that early flurry against Fulham, he would have knocked in a couple of rebounds.
Yeah, I think he needs the minutes. Actually, I think it just makes sense. Give him the minutes ahead of like a training game. Almost to get into the And I think Man United need to do well in the cup. They can't afford to have a bad game against Grimsby. You know.
No, definitely not. I mean, if we go out of the cup, ignoring the fact that it would be terrible to go out of the cup against Grimsby, it's also the end of any extracurricular football until January. It's just one day a week in the league. Yeah. When we're already behind it, it's just going to be miserable. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You need to do well in that.
Yeah.
Some of us clubs aren't even in it yet because
exactly. On that Brighton versus City, I think Brighton have gone under the radar for being pretty poor so far this season. To be honest, They've had. They drew.
Yeah, okay.
They drew against Fulham.
They weren't that good last season either.
No, but they drew against Fulham. They got beat quite comfortably by Everton. They're coming up against City, who, you know, they battered Wolves and then Spurs played them off the park. So it's very sort of Jekyll and Hyde there. So be interesting to see what happens in that one, I think. But yeah. I mean, some of these, guaranteed one of the games will be an absolute blinder. It'll be the best game of the weekend, and it won't be the Arsenal versus Liverpool game or Liverpool versus Arsenal. I fancy Leeds versus Newcastle to be just the silly game.
It should be, you know, theoretically. I don't know whether they have enough up front to truly hurt us, you know.
Yeah.
Unless we could do 10 men again. But I could see us struggling to score against them, maybe, because we don't have any strikers, and now Gordon's red carded for 3 games. But it'll be a struggle, I think. But I think we will win that game. I think.
I've gone for quite a comfortable Newcastle win on that.
First 2 games. But I know Rich has went for a Leeds win. He thinks we're in trouble with a few injuries and that. But I think if we play like we have in the first 2 games, we beat them. But you never know. We played well in the first game. Played pretty badly against Arsenal.
Yeah.
So that, I guess that wraps this one up for our kind of latest episode. We will be back for some more after the next game week. Of course, we'll be back to review how that went, looking at our predictions, see who did well, updating our table as always to see who's winning our league, and exploring our next team of the weeks, etc. So once again, thanks very much for watching us, and please remember to check out the main Genreverse YouTube channel for any kind of content you might fancy on there, and please check out lrmonline.com as well for any written content that you might be looking for. And please, if you like this, give us a like and subscribe, and come back and see us for our next episode. Thanks very much. Bye bye.